My name is Greg Naylor. As an attorney, I practice principally in the areas of labor and employment law, and I've defended several sexual harassment cases over the years. The United States Supreme Court has said that sexual harassment is a common problem that by now every employer should anticipate and stop. Preventing sexual harassment is really all about employee education, which is why you need to know what it is and what you can do about it. In the healthcare industry, federal law protects you and your fellow employees from sexual harassment. Even though the physical care offered in the healthcare environment makes your service different from many other businesses, the same laws still apply. Recently, there's been so much said about sexual harassment that it can be a little confusing. What exactly is it? How do I know if I might be harassing someone, or if someone is harassing me? Does it matter who the harasser is? And what can be done to stop harassment? In healthcare, sexual harassment issues can be very complex. Not only is staff protected from inappropriate actions by co-employees, but they are also protected from actions by third parties, such as vendors or even patients. In addition, unlike a business office or a manufacturing environment, clinical situations often require physical contact, which can be an especially sensitive issue. This video will present situations that you, the healthcare professional, should avoid to protect yourself and your facility from sexual harassment claims or other legal problems. The law on sexual harassment doesn't need to be complex. Over the years, the courts have generally identified two types of sexual harassment. The first type has been called quid pro quo. It's unwelcome sexual advances or requests for sexual favors by a supervisor in return for favorable job considerations, like raises or promotions, or avoiding unfavorable job consequences, like demotions or discharge. The second and most common type has been called hostile work environment harassment. Hostile work environment harassment is unwelcome words or actions based upon a person's sex which are severe and repetitive enough to create an abusive work environment. We're going to be showing you several brief case studies based upon true stories. In each example, the behavior illustrated is clearly wrong, but it may or may not be illegal sexual harassment. See if you can tell if it is or if it isn't. At the end of each example, we're going to be giving you a brief explanation of why it's either illegal sexual harassment or not, and what can be done about it.
You seen the patient in 412?
412.
Mm-hmm.
412. She yours?
I wish. Oh, you mean my patient, right? Yeah, she's mine, all right. You should see her charts. Whew.
I don't believe you two.
Oh, what's wrong, Rosa? You shouldn't be jealous. You get pretty nice charts yourself.
Although this man's words were not specifically sexual, what he said has sexual implications. According to the law, sexual innuendos in conversations that imply sexual meaning are just as unlawful as using direct sexual language. Usually one comment or action isn't considered harassment. Typically, illegal harassment is a pattern of repeated behaviors or words that interferes with a person's work. If these unwelcome comments continue, this example could become hostile work environment sexual harassment.
Dr. Fuller.
Oh, hi, Jim.
Nancy Maddie, your patient in 1213. Don't think her block is working. She says she's still in a lot of pain.
Well, don't worry, Jim. That sometimes happens with this type of surgery. We can increase the meds, and that should help if the block doesn't take. I'll look in on her.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Fuller.
Oh, please, you can call me Beverly. You know, Jim, I've been very impressed at how sensitive you are to patients' needs.
Well, thank you.
But you need to learn to relax a little, too, you know. Hey, I've got a great idea. Why don't we drive up to my lake house this weekend? Just the two of us. It'd be a fun getaway. You know, we could talk about that opening for surgical nurse that I told you about. You know, that position could be a great opportunity for you.
Potential problem? Possibly. When Dr. Fuller asked Jim out for the weekend, that request alone didn't violate any laws. A simple request for a date is not harassment. If a supervisor harasses an employee and there's a tangible adverse employment action, such as a demotion or a discharge, or where a promotion is tied to consent to the harassment, the organization will be automatically liable for the supervisor's harassing conduct. As such, the law clearly places a very heavy burden upon employers to educate, train, and warn all employees, particularly supervisors, to avoid harassing conduct.
Yeah, that should be ready in about an hour. Okay, we'll see you then. Long day.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You know, I have been meaning to tell you, I love what you've done with your hair.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Oh, come on, I'm just trying to pay you a compliment.
The courts have said that physical touching will more quickly create an illegal work environment than off-color comments or jokes. Physical contact in the workplace is clearly unprofessional. It's usually unwelcome, and it can often create a sexually harassing work environment. In this case, the woman clearly let the harasser know that she wanted him to stop touching her. Because he continued, this could be considered sexual harassment. The best policy for prevention of this kind of sexual harassment is really very simple. Unless you're doing a clinical procedure which requires physical contact, don't touch anybody at work. Physical contact in the workplace can be both unwelcome and misinterpreted. Let's take a look at another situation.
Liz, you might want to take a look in on 320. I think it's about time to check his IV.
Yes, I was just on my way.
A little something from the boys.
Thanks for the present, guys. Ooh, that's nice. Oh, now, Miss August, that's the girl in my dreams.
Yeah, and only in your dreams, too.
Oh, now, nurse, what do you think? Is she too good for me?
I really wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
Hey, Ray, show Miss July. Maybe she knows her.
Oh, yeah, hey. What do you think? Do you know her?
Hey, check this out. What do you think? Right here?
Oh, yeah, right there.
This is your get well inspiration?
Oh, yeah, I'm feeling better.
Oh, yeah.
I really don't appreciate those kinds of pictures. Is there anything we can do about that?
Boys will be boys.
Here's a situation where three important points should be stressed. First, even though this patient and his friends were not employees or co-workers of the nurse, they still created a hostile and offensive work environment. The law is clear. Even the actions of third parties or non-employees can create a sexually hostile work environment. Your organization can be liable if it knew or should have known about the harassment and failed to stop it. This brings us to the second important point. The nurse's supervisor clearly observed the situation. Legally, the supervisor should have reacted and immediately stopped the harassment. Failure to act could be viewed as excusing or even encouraging the illegal behavior. And the final point. According to the law, the display of suggestive pictures, posters, calendars, or lewd cartoons can be just as illegal as offensive sexual comments. Facilities that allow such conduct could be liable for sexual harassment.
I guess I know my next stop.
Hey, Gene. You ever play Candy Striper and the Librarian?
Look, Bob, I think I've made it clear that I'm not interested. And I'd really appreciate it if you'd stop following me around like this every weekend.
Hey, lighten up. I just think volunteers should sort of stick together, especially you and me.
Here we have a situation where the parties involved are technically not employees of the hospital because they're both volunteers. Still, everyone has the right to be treated professionally and with respect at work. As volunteers, they are providing needed services for the employer. Even if they're not compensated, volunteers should still be able to work in a non-threatening environment. In this case, the man's requests had become repetitive, and his demands for a date were not welcomed by the woman. He was creating a hostile work environment. Even as a volunteer, she should follow her hospital's procedures and report the objectionable conduct.
You're kidding.
So they checked out, and I never heard from them again.
Oh, I heard some great nurse jokes.
Oh, swell.
What's the nurse's mating call?
What?
Cha-ching! Cha-ching! How do you know if a nurse is enjoying herself during sex?
Oh.
Beats me. If it ever happens, I'll let you know.
Oh, yeah, that's really funny.
What's wrong, Susan? Don't you get it?
That's not what I hear.
Hey, I've got a lot more.
He's got some great...
The courts have made it clear that isolated teasing or even simple rudeness is not sexual harassment. However, sexual jokes, off-color comments, and sexual acts can become illegal if they are severe, they're directed at a person because of their sex, and they negatively affect a person's employment. It is clear that these sexual jokes would have been offensive to a reasonable person, and they did offend this woman. However, the men continued telling the jokes such that they created an illegal hostile work environment.
Okay, and takes care of that. Well, I'll bet you're glad to finally get that cast off, aren't you?
No, that's for sure.
All right. Let me just reach in.
Hey, what do you think you're doing?
I'm sorry.
Is this sexual harassment? Probably not. It appeared that the physical contact, which the patient found disturbing, was truly unintentional and incidental to the healthcare procedure. Remember, in a healthcare setting, physical contact with patients or others is often not only unavoidable, it's part of the job. So how do you avoid an uncomfortable situation such as the one we've just seen? It's always a good idea to clearly explain to a patient what you're going to be doing during a procedure, particularly if there could be any physical contact. By doing so, the patient will be forewarned if any incidental contact does occur. By now, you should have a pretty good idea of what sexual harassment is, but you can see that in some situations, it really isn't always quite so clear. So how can you tell if what you're doing or saying is sexual harassment? Let me give you some simple rules to work by. If in doubt, don't say it. Don't imply it. Don't put it on display. Think about what you're about to do or say, and if there's any doubt at all, don't do it or say it. Now let's review the main points. First, sexual harassment is illegal. Under the law, every person has the right to work in an environment which is free from sexual harassment. The most common type of workplace harassment creates a hostile work environment where repeated verbal or physical actions are directed at another person because of the person's sex, and the conduct is unwelcome or unwanted. The harassing behavior must adversely affect the victim's employment by creating an abusive work environment. Some examples are suggestive or off-color jokes, comments about body parts or one's sex life, suggestive pictures, posters, or calendars, repeated requests for dates, and any inappropriate touching, including rubbing, pinches, or even repeatedly brushing up against someone. How can we stop harassment? Every employee should take proactive and preventative steps, such as learning and following your organization's policies. Remember, if you think you're being sexually harassed and it's interfering with your job, tell the person harassing you to stop. Further, if you observe sexually harassing conduct, don't walk away, report it. It's not only your right to work without being sexually harassed, but it's also your responsibility to help build a workplace free from this type of illegal behavior.